Reading from a British version of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. The chapter is entitled Planting the Seed. A marble miniature gazebo, four pillars, and a roof with a drinking fountain inside was a remnant from the old days, 1891, according to the inscription. On its four sides were the words hope, faith, charity, and temperance. But someone had sprayed the whole structure with black paint, making crude designs and illegible names and initials. Today, a bench had been taken over by several conga and bongo drummers, and the whole park pulsed with their demanding rhythms. And the hippies were there, different from the others, the bearded Bohemian men and their long-haired young girl friends, dressed in all blue jeans, were still an unusual sight. Even in the Lower East Side melting pot, their presence created tension. They were from the middle-class families, and so they had not been driven to the slums by dire economic necessity. This created conflicts in their dealings with the underprivileged immigrants, and the hideous, well-known proclivity for psychedelic drugs. They revolt against their families and affluence, and their absorption in the avant-garde sometimes made them the jeered minority among the neighbors. But the hippies just wanted to do their own thing and create their own revolution for love and peace. So usually they were tolerated, although not appreciated. There were various groups among the young and hip at Tompkins Square Park. There were friends who had gone to the same school together, who took the same drug together, or who agreed on a particular philosophy of art, literature, politics, or metaphysics. They were lovers. They were groups hanging out together for reasons undis- undecipherable, except for the common purpose of doing their own thing. And there were others who lived like hermits. A loner would sit on a park bench, analyzing the effect of cocaine, looking up at the strangely rustling green leaves of the trees and the blue sky above the tenements, and then down to the garbage at his feet as he helplessly followed his mind from fear to illumination to disgust to hallucination, on and on until the drug began to wear off and he was again a common stranger. Sometimes they would sit up all night, spaced out in a park, until at last, in the light of morning, they would stretch out on benches to sleep. Hippies especially took to the park on Sundays. They at least passed through the park on their way to St. Mark's Place, Greenwich Village, or the Lexington Avenue subway at Astor Place, or the IND subway at Houston and Second, or to catch an uptown bus on First Avenue, a downtown bus on Second, or a crosstown on Ninth, or they went to the park just to get out of their apartments and sit together in the open air to get high again, to talk, or to walk through the park's maze of pathways. But whatever the hippies' diverse interests and drives, the Lower East Side was an essential part of the mystique. It was not just a dirty slum, it was the best place in the world to conduct the experiment in consciousness. For all its filth and threat of violence and the confined life of it, brownstone tenements, the Lower East Side was still the forefront of the revolution in mind expansion. Unless you were living there and taking psychedelics or marijuana, or at least intellectually pursuing the quest for free personal religion, you weren't enlightened, and you weren't taking part in the most progressive evolution of human existence of the ordinary materialistic, straight American that brought unity to the otherwise eclectic gathering of hippies on the Lower East Side. Into this chaotic pageant Swamiji entered with his followers and sat down to hold a kirtan. Three or four devotees who arrived ahead of him selected an open area of the park, but out of the oriental carpet Robert Nelson had donated, sat down on it, and began playing kartals and chanting Hare Krishna. Immediately, some boys rode up on their bicycles, braked just short of the carpet, and stood astride their bikes, curiously and irreverently staring. Other, sorry, irreverently staring. Thank you. Other passers-by gathered to listen. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 3, text number 16. Yam vai na gobir manasa subir va. Yam vai na gobir manasa subir va. Yam vai na gobir manasa subir va. Hrida gira vasu brito vichakshate. Hrida gira vasu brito vichakshate. Hrida gira vasu brito vichakshate. Atmanam antarhridi santam atmanam atmanam antarhridi santam atmanam antarhridi santam atmanam chakshur yataivakritayas tata param chakshur yataivakritayas tata param chakshur yataivakritayas tata param Yam vaina gobir manasa subirva Hridagirava subrito vichakshate Atmanam antar hridi santam atmanam Chakshuryataiva kritayastata param Yam vaina gobir manasa subirva Hridagirava subrito vichakshate Atmanam antargridi santam atmanam Chakshuryataiva kritayastata param Gobir manasa subirva Hridagirava subrito vichakshate Atmanam antargridi santam atmanam Chakshuryateva kritayastata param Yam vaina gobir manasa subirva Hridagirava subrito vichakshate Atmanam antargridi santam atmanam Chakshu Yamaina Gobir Manasa Subirva Hridagirava Subrito Vichakshate Atmanamantargridi Santam Atmanam Chakshuryateva Kritayastataparam. Vaishnavas. Yamaina Gobir Manasa Subirva Hridagirava Subrito Vichakshate Atmanam Antargridi Santam Atmanam Chakshuryateva Kritayastataparam. Vaigubir Manasa Subirva Hridagirava Subrito Vichakshate Atmanamantagridi Santam Atmanam Chakshuryateva Kritayastataparam. Yam whom Vai indeed Na not Gobihi by the senses Manasa by the mind Ashubhi by the life breath Va or Hrida by thoughts Gira by words Va or Asubrita the living entities Vichakshate see or know Atmanam the super soul Antahridi within the core of the heart Santam existing Atmanam of the living entities Chakshu the eyes Yata just like Eva indeed Akritaya the different parts or limbs of the body Tata than them Param higher. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. As the different limbs of the body cannot see the eyes, the living entities cannot see the Supreme Lord, who is situated as the Super Soul in everyone's heart, not by the senses, by the mind, by the live ear, by thoughts within the heart, or by the vibration of words, can the living entities ascertain a real situation of the Supreme Lord. Purport. Although the different parts of the body do not have the power to see the eyes direct the movements of the body's different parts. The legs move forward because the eyes see what is in front of them. And the hand touches because the eyes see touchable entities. Similarly, every living being acts according to the direction of the Supersoul who is situated within the heart. As the Lord Himself confirms in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya chaham hridisani vishto matas mitrigyanam apohanam cha. I am sitting in everyone's heart and giving directions for remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita it is stated, Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati. The Supreme Lord, as the Super Soul, is situated within the heart. The living entity cannot do anything without the sanction of the Super Soul. The Super Soul is acting at every moment, but the living entity cannot understand the form and activities of the Super Soul by manipulating his senses. The example of the eyes and the bodily limbs is very appropriate. If the limbs could see, they could walk forward without the help of the eyes, but that is impossible. Although one cannot see the super soul in in one's heart through sensual activities, his direction is necessary. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute तप्त कंचना गौरंगी राधे वृंदवनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणनामि हरिप्रिये पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripata mahamande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. By the mercy of spiritual master, a blind man can see the stars, lame man can cross the mountains, and dumb man can speak eloquently. I therefore offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. So the translation again. As the different limbs of the body cannot see eyes, the living entities cannot see the Supreme Lord, who is situated as the super soul in everyone's heart, not by the senses, by the mind, by the life fear, by thoughts within the heart, or by the vibration of words, can the living entities ascertain the real situation of the Supreme Lord. Sometimes it's difficult to appreciate what you have until you lose it, or until the thing that you have may not function properly anymore. Especially if you start getting a little old, or if you have some accident or something, or COVID, for example. I had a COVID not so long ago. Then you are not able to do a certain things for a little while. You got like a fever. You may be refrained from doing service. Your usual routine gets affected, and you're just not able to do something. Or on another occasion, I had like some wax in the ear, and for 2-3 weeks, I couldn't hear with that ear until it kind of cleared out. Was using some medicine until that ear cleared out. And so during that time, I could appreciate actually what is it like to not have a sense of hearing to some extent. You feel a little bit socially excluded even if you're sitting in a conversation next to prasadam, taking prasadam, but because you're not fully able to hear what other people are speaking, you feel a bit kind of left out of the conversation because you can't respond to to what he's saying, or even if you can get involved with saying something, but you cannot so properly hear response. And eyes as well is such an important thing. We don't appreciate until we start losing like a eyesight or something. Of course, in Kali Yuga, like a really good eyesight when people don't have to wear glasses, that's quite rare. That's almost the first sense that starts to that starts to struggle. But so this is the importance of the certain senses that we have, that we don't appreciate and will start to lose it. So in a similar way, the super soul is there, and we are not fully aware of the function of the super soul. We're not fully aware of how it acts and how things happen, but it is actually there. And when we become more aware of that function, when we come to Krishna consciousness, it becomes a lot more apparent and clear the hand of the super soul when it's starting to direct us, and sometimes inspire and sometimes educate, etc. Uh, and it's actually directing us towards Krishna. When that desire awakens within us to be Krishna conscious, or whatever the motivation may be in the beginning, is most likely it will be mixed. But as soon as that, to some extent, the desire awakens to go towards Krishna with whatever motivation, then the super soul is start guiding us, and the spiritual master also starts to guide us. So there's an internal guidance as the super soul, and there is external guidance as a spiritual master, as a sadhu, as a guru. But the guidance is always there, even before we come to Krishna consciousness. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that I'm directing the wanderings of all living beings since time immemorial, who are sitting as if on the machine made of material energy. Do you know this verse, Ashish? I think I don't. Jai. Thank you. Fantastic. This combined effort, team effort. I myself don't know it's by heart, so thank you so much for your help. And it's interesting. This verse actually appears in this purport. So the Lord is directing the living entity according to the living entity's desire. So this is how the gratitude starts of the living entity, when we start realizing that actually Krishna has been guiding and directing us and has been with us since time immemorial, since we entered this material existence. Although in a spiritual existence, Krishna is also there, always with us, directly or indirectly. Directly, of course, when we are in His presence, and indirectly to remembering Krishna, uh, we are with Krishna. So in the spiritual world, Krishna is always with the living entity, and when the living entity comes to this material world, Krishna is always as well with us and is guiding and directing us. And basically, as a loving parent, Krishna, in a form of super soul, it provides what we want. At the same time, Krishna is waiting for the time until we can turn to Him. So we need to realize that helpless condition that we are in, that we are so small and we are so insignificant, that Krishna is guiding and directing us in every circumstance, even in material life. People become so much puffed up and proud of whatever their achievements and their intelligence, or whatever one of the six opulences that Krishna has manifests in a minute quantity in a living entity. And there's a tendency to become proud and puffed up over that, whatever comes. But it is sanctioned and approved by the super soul. The living entity desires, it performs some endeavor, material nature facilitates, but Krishna always sanctions, and he is in every circumstance is a sanctioner. In every circumstance is remains a supreme controller. Is such a powerful principle that the Lord is always a controller. He sanctions every single thing, and of course, he doesn't interfere generally with the karmic cause of action until the living entity awakens desire for him. So everything is kind of acting almost like automatically, although Krishna is sanctioning things and the law of nature is functioning and there is the devatas and etc. It seems like automatic, but there is, this whole system is so working so perfectly and so nicely arranged that it looks like automatic. Just like if things are really well organized, like in an event, and everybody knows what they're doing and what is their service and etc. It's almost it feels like it's things are happening almost automatically, but it's actually this just a perfect organization of the Lord and a perfect sanction of the Lord, how everything functions. But ultimately, as soon as we awaken this desire for Krishna, this is where the whole exciting part starts, because before that, when everything is no, there is no conception of super soul, there is no conception of God in life, is actually very very dull existence. It's very very sad. And if you look back in our life when there is no Krishna, and everything is just this almost like random existence, although it is happening under direction of super soul and under direction of our previous desires. Those desires are manifesting by super soul's arrangement, like so many things that is there in our karmic situation, accumulating birth after birth after birth in our subtle body. Shishikone taimai pushashiki, in a subtle body, it becomes manifested by the arrangement of the super soul. Super soul, it reminds us our past lives desires. The super soul is manifesting, by super soul's arrangements, various situations in our life that are coming from our past lives. And then, of course, we have then a freedom to actually react to those situations. But when we become aware of that situation, then it becomes, this is where the fun starts. This is where the beautiful, exciting things can happen. And this is where there is opportunity for relationship. First gratitude, and then relationship, understanding that actually Krishna has been providing us in this time immemorial, birth after birth after birth, fulfilling our desires, birth after birth after birth, just like a child. It has no practically awareness of what the parents are doing. It's just drinking the milk. It's just taking things kind of for granted. The breakfast is there, the lunch is there, the dinner is there. They're taking everything for granted, more or less. But when child grows up and starts taking care of oneself and starts understanding that actually my parents has been providing me for years and years and years, and I had like almost not conscious awareness of that situation that I've been looked after. And then one becomes grateful, like and gratitude for the parents that they, and devotee is grateful to parents that they took so much trouble to bring the devotee up, and now because of that upbringing and growth and etc., one can engage in devotional service, and so engage one's body and mind and soul in devotional service. So we have to be grateful to our parents. So in the similar way, uh, at one point, by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, we become aware that actually super soul has been always with us. If somebody is always with us, it's something special, something very special. You're having like a relationship and a friend who is always with you, is providing your needs, looking after you. That's a very, very special, you know, friend, and sees the things what is coming up. And so it will tell you certain times, don't do this, you'll get in trouble. Or that friend would say, do this. So super soul is often comes in a voice of conscience, and says, don't do this or do this. It may come in a form of other people telling you something to do or not to do. And especially when we come to Krishna consciousness, it comes in a form of guru, sadhu, and shastra. So the shastra can guide the super soul. What is the guiding principle when we think, okay, I open any page, and see what is saying there. It says about affection. Actually, I just read about affection. So super soul is always very affectionate to us, uh, and speaking through the scripture, speaking to the sadhu, speaking to the guru. It's such a wonderful realizing to have that friend, ever will wisher. Like Prabhupada says, I am your ever will wisher. He was signing all the letters. Your ever will wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And so many people will declare in this material world to be our well-wishers. The government will say, and various types of people. But unless and until the heart is pure, there will be some limitation in that well-wishing. There will be some business kind of situation, some monetary exchange, and the true well-wishing. And of course, that's why mother's love is considered the highest, because it has got highest degree of well-wishes. uh, but super soul and the spiritual master and A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, His Divine Grace, they have our ultimate well-wishes at the heart. So if somebody has got our well-wishes at heart, how much we can put our trust and faith and love and confidence in these people who has got our well-wishes and trust at heart. So all the Prabhupada's books has got those well-wishes at the very heart. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami has written every word for our ultimate well-wishes. He wants us to be back in Krishna's association. That's gonna bring the highest happiness, and nothing gonna come ever near to it in this material world, unless and until we come to this point of being in Krishna's association. So this is how we need to start learning to see, is to see the super soul's guidance and trust that super soul's guidance. And of course, until our heart is purified, we have to take that guidance more externally than internally. But there will be as well some internal guidance, but you have to verify it as well with devotees. And the guidance will come in the form of Shastra and Guru and Sadhu. But with that gratitude, the relationship will start deepening, and understanding how the super soul is guiding and directing us. And of course, we pray for the guidance, because we don't want to be guided by super soul on the basis of our material desires. We want to be guided by the super soul on the basis of our ultimate goal of prema pum artu mahan, that with the ultimate goal of loving Krishna eternally. And therefore we need to learn to see on that basis of how super soul sees, and how the spiritual master sees, and how Krishna sees, comparatively speaking, with our own conditioned nature. We will have a limitation of how we can see, because of lust and anger and greed and envy and illusion and madness. This is what living entity becomes covered in this material world by the various degrees of these things. So slowly, for surely, we need to transition to that trust of super soul and external manifestation of the super soul, spiritual master, and allow them to guide our lives back into Krishna's association. Uh, so, are there any questions or comments on this point? Yes, Javatvasa Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. In the translation, it says, "Not by the senses, by the mind, by the life air, by thoughts within the heart." So, and as we understand that the super soul is situated within the heart of the living entity, and in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "One whose mind is controlled, the super soul is already reached." And I was always under the impression that that verse indicated that by controlling the mind, that you can perceive the super soul within the heart.
Mm.
So, what's your understanding of that? That the super soul cannot be ascertained by thoughts within the heart?
Well, I think this verse is not necessarily saying that you cannot perceive super soul by this, and as I mentioned, the mind, when the mind is controlled, super soul is reached, and also the conscience, the voice of conscience, in one sense, that gives a certain perception of the super soul, especially if you're purifying your existence, you may be able more perceive that voice. But I think what it says is the real situation. I think that's the key word, that one cannot ascertain the real situation. So while you can perceive the super soul, you cannot perceive the real situation of what is going on there. For example, some of the yogis, when they see super soul, they meditate for a long time on the super soul, and they see the super soul, but because they haven't submissively heard from the sadhus, therefore they sometimes misunderstand. They think that this is them, for example. So it's like impersonalist, so they see the super soul and they think it's them. So therefore, just a perception of the super soul is not sufficient, although we may be able, and even various degrees, to various degrees smaller, even the psychedelics was mentioned, sometimes people perceive something there, but they don't understand a real situation of the Supreme Lord, despite of the perception of that, of the super soul. And in order to understand the real situation, we need to hear submissively from the Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Only liberated souls and the Lord Himself can explain to us the real situation, because they are free, transparent via medium. They are free from that entanglement. Just looking at the next verse, whether it explains at some point. So anyway, the Vaishnavas, the devotees, can deliver to us Krishna. That's why, in this bhajan by Narottam Das Thakur, I believe, this Narottam Das Thakur is saying, "I'm running after you, O great venerable Vaishnava, great respectable Vaishnava. I'm running after you, calling Krishna, Krishna, because by your mercy you can give Krishna." So this is how we can receive and understand real situation of the Supreme Lord. And other comments or questions? Bhakti Ekaterina.
I really like the point you made about how Srila Prabhupada has given us the ultimate gift of bringing us to Krishna. And it reminded me of something I read in Bhagavatam, that Srila Prabhupada was explaining how all our suffering is caused by ignorance. and the ignorance that we're sort of the body, not the soul, and that we're like with ignorance that we're actually servants of Krishna. So it reminded me of that, and it reminded me that it actually can make us happy and free from that suffering, that ultimate gift of bringing us to Krishna, and the only thing that would really make us happy. So that's like saving our life. Called Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai. Jai, that's fantastic point. Yeah, that's the wishing principle, because people are looking security in this world, and their whatever they have, their wealth, their beauty, their fame, their strength. They're hoping this is gonna give them ultimate security in material existence. But eventually, the strength is lost, the beauty is lost, the money you have to leave behind. You cannot take a penny with you. Fame, it fades away, and then you have, the statues in a how we call it, George Square, where the birds are sitting on the top of statues and doing whatever they're doing. So or if the climate in the world changes, then that statue may be thrown into the river. So all the all the fame, may end up, at the bottom of the river, as it happened, I think, in London not so long ago. So all the things, and of course, the living entity is looking for that security. Is just the nature of the sat aspect of the existence, where you need is one of the needs, eternal needs of the living entity, is to be secure, and you cannot find it. But the only person that is secure in this, even in this material existence, is the pure devotee of the Lord, because the pure devotee knows that everything is got that absolute faith and trust that everything is happening by the will of the Lord. And also you have a sense of security if somebody kind of cares for you unconditionally, and that is, one of the important aspects of the leaders, is to create at least to some extent, is that limitation, of course, but on behalf of Krishna, to create a certain degree of a sense of security, or imbibe ultimately the trust, and teach to have that faith and trust, that if I just simply, and that is the definition of faith, if I simply surrender to Krishna, that's gonna bring the ultimate perfection. Simply serve and surrender and give my heart and soul to Krishna sincerely, with devotion, give my love to Krishna, that Krishna will take care of me, and Super Soul will provide the necessary guidance, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love. I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So on that basis, that's the ultimate security that we can gain in life. And when that principle, it becomes more prominent in our life because of our chanting and our devotion and our sincerity, is such a wonderful existence. When you see this hand of Krishna in your life, and the words of the spiritual master is guiding you and inspiring you, this is what the point that we need to somehow or another come to, and catch that feet of a spiritual master and Krishna, and then we will feel that security. Even if it can be complete turmoil in life, everything is going upside down, we will feel still more secure, or even know how to approach and get ultimately the instructions and the guidance of spiritual master and the scripture. It will give us the sense of security. And even if everything is just totally upside down in our existence, but through the chanting and association, we'll still feel security, even when there's a big massive waves in the ocean, like you're in a big ship and there's lots of wind and the waves are very high and etc. But because the captain, you have a full trust, the captain is very experienced and the ship is very powerful and strong, then despite of the big waves, you feel secure in that situation. Yes, Prabhu.
was a mental health first aider Zoom meeting the other night, and they were saying that during the pandemic, everyone's been kind of on emergency mode, but now that things are getting back to normal, that's when they'll start seeing actually how the toll that it's taken on their mental health, because they were just trying to survive. And now that they relax, it'll start to come out, and that they themselves have to safeguard against getting traumatized, trying to help other people. So they're interested as a group to come here and learn to meditate. So it's like how are you going to make people happy if you've not found it yourself? You can't give what you've not got. So they're feeling that they need to do that.
That's a fantastic point. And if you're trying to align and become like a representative of the super soul and the spiritual master, super soul has cared for us so much. Prabhupada is caring so much. We have to align ourselves with that care, and by taking some self-care, have a really good sadhana, and then we can be proper representatives of the super soul, in whatever capacity, whatever is our situation, whether we need to care for a younger devotee or a newcomer to Krishna consciousness, or for the temple or the department or the people, etc. In that purified and connected situation, we can represent properly this how you call it, the internal guide, super soul. There is some chakshu or something like that. Chaitya guru. Yeah, external guru and also Chaitya guru. So stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande.
His Grace Raghunatha Bhatta Prabhu ki.
Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.